Welcome to the In Love with PMDD podcast. I am your host, Dr. Rose, your PMDD relationship psychotraumatologist, and I help you stop the monthly PMDD breakups. PMDD is premenstrual dysphoric disorder. It is in approximately 1 in 5 women, and it makes you want to break up with your partner approximately 1 to 2 weeks before your period every single month. So as someone who has suffered with PMDD for over 18 years, I dedicated my doctorate practice to helping partners navigate those monthly PMDD breakups with everything from attachment styles, triggers, sensitivity to noise, sensitivity to touch, all of the things that you really struggle with when you're in PMDD. And I also dedicated my dissertation to a phenomenological study of the relationship experiences of partners of individuals who suffer with premenstrual dysphoric disorder. So I'm not just here to help the sufferer, the one who is suffering with PMDD. I am here for the partners as well. So if you need those private sessions, make sure you go to inlovewithpmdd.com and get those tools. So let's get into this week's PMDD trauma transformational tools that is going to help you stop the monthly breakups and stop the suffering and stress in your PMDD relationship. Let's get into it. Today, I want to talk to you about one of the biggest reasons for PMDD monthly breakups. And I'm really excited to really dive deep into this. I've had this with me for so long, and I've been dealing with so many private clients that are dealing with this issue. And it's something that really resonates with me with my PMDD breakups. And I've noticed a pattern, and that is getting offended. So one of the things that I want to tell you is that when your partner does something to trigger you, it is okay that it bothers you. It is okay that it triggers you. But what happens is when you get offended, when that offense comes in and you begin to think about what your PMDD partner did again and again and again, and it starts to replay in your mind and it's mixed with those intrusive thoughts, that's when you go into PMDD, and it causes a lot of those PMDD monthly breakups. But it starts with the PMDD rage. So a lot of times when you are feeling offended by your partner because of something that they have done or something that they haven't done, I want you to understand that this is one of the greatest tools of PMDD. As soon as you get offended by something that your partner has done, it grabs it. PMDD has the ability to grab it. And have you ever wondered why you keep ruminating and thinking about, what your partner did, what your partner said again and again and again? And even if your partner has apologized, you're still so focused on what it is that they did. And then the partner ends up getting really frustrated because it's almost like they've apologized, even if they haven't apologized. There's nothing that they can do. It's stuck in your head. And it is the greatest tool of PMDD because what it does is it shifts your emotions and the way that you look at your PMDD partner. When you are offended, you look at your PMDD partner differently. You begin to look at them like you deserve better. You begin to look at them like, I can't believe, they did this to me. I can't believe they said this to me. And I've been in this place so many times where as soon as I got offended, I looked at my PMDD partner differently. I felt differently about my PMDD partner. And the way it showed up for me is I didn't feel safe. I didn't feel understood. I felt misunderstood. I felt like there was this wall in between me and my PMDD partner as soon as I got offended, because it was almost like, if you're supposed to be this person that loves me, adores me, and says all these amazing things about me, how can you say these horrible things about me? Or how can you not do something that you said that you were going to do? Or how can you say these hurtful words? And that was the biggest thing for me when I really looked back at all of my PMDD monthly breakups and my big breakups. I really noticed that it all started with me getting offended. Everything was going great. A comment was made. We talked earlier about hurtful words. And then once I was offended, there was this wall. So every action that my PMDD partner was taking, they're being seen as the enemy. So we get into this realm of seeing our PMDD partner as the enemy because they offended us, meaning they're no longer on our team anymore. They're on, the opposite side, and you're feeling like you have to defend yourself to your PMDD partner because they don't see you in this amazing light. They're not saying something, they're not telling you that you're great, that you're amazing, I love you, I adore you. They may be telling you something that you've done to trigger them. And now all of a sudden, you're looking at them differently. You're like, you get defensive. You're like, well, what about you? Like, what did you do? And then you go into this back and forth thing. But getting offended is really the first step to getting towards PMDD rage, then getting into those PMDD monthly breakups, because you get so frustrated with trying to explain to yourself, to your PMDD partner, to try to defend yourself to your PMDD partner. But I want you to really recognize that PMDD uses those emotions when you're offended to make you suffer. The whole goal of PMDD is to make you suffer within your relationship. And I know a lot of times that is so hard to really grasp. But the way I always tell my private clients to think about it is, think of getting offended. Think of PMDD monthly breakups as symptoms. These are things that are going to happen again and again and again when you're in PMDD. So if you're aware of them, then you're able to use the tools and do something about it. But when it catches you off guard, when you get offended and it catches you off guard, your immediate reaction could be anger. Your immediate reaction is to go into PMDD rage. Your immediate reaction is to say and do something to hurt your PMDD partner because you're hurt. And what did I say before? Hurt PMDD partners hurt PMDD partners. So when you're hurting, you have the propensity to say hurtful things back to your partner because you know why? You really want them to feel how you feel. Like you're hurting, and it's almost like you want your PMDD partner to know how it feels like to be that hurt, to be that offended, especially if you've brought it to your partner and you've said like, hey, babe, you hurt my feelings when you said this, or you hurt my feelings when they did this. If they start to minimize the offense, if they start to minimize the hurtful actions that they've taken, if they start to minimize the trigger, then your immediate reaction is to retaliate. You're like, okay, so you obviously don't care about my feelings, so then I don't care about your feelings. And then that's when we go into the circle to where you're both doing things to hurt each other. You're both doing things to hurt each other. And it really impacts your PMDD relationship because it creates this wall between you. And I know for me, I know PMDD literally will attack you where you're the most weak. It literally, like if you have a sensitivity to rejection, if you have a sensitivity to not getting, affection, whatever your sensitivity is, it's going to attack that area the most. And for me, my biggest weakness in relationships is getting offended. I remember so many times I would feel so hurt. It would literally break me down to hear the hurtful words from my partner, and partners in the past. This is a pattern for me. And after going through the breakup with my ex-PMDD partner, I really had to, in this healing journey, I really had to take responsibility for what am I going through? What is a pattern that I'm seeing? How can I grow? And one of the biggest things is I get easily offended. I get really easily offended because my intentions are always pure. I never intend to hurt anyone. I never intend to, do anything malicious, do anything sneaky, do anything. So it's really hard for me to understand how people can say, especially partners, can say and do hurtful things towards me because I'm genuinely consistently showing how much I love them, how much I adore them, how much I'm invested in them. And so when someone, pretty much says or does something that offends me, it's like it's so much harder for me to grasp because I feel like it's not a fair fight. Like we're not yelling and cursing each other out. So how can you say these hurtful words towards me? And I really let it stick to me. And I remember when I was trying to create tools for private clients, and I was like, what is, the problem about offense? The problem with offense is it sticks to you. it sticks to you, it replays in your mind, especially when you get into PMDD. It's not something that you just deal with one time. So if I get offended, if I allow myself to get offended, then I know that it can take days, weeks, months for me to get over it because I've investigated it and I've thought about it again and again, and I'm holding on to it. And offense is something that you can literally hold on to. It's like holding on to one of those stress balls. And it's almost like you don't want to let it go because you know if you let the offense go, you're going to be forgiving your PMDD partner. But because you're offended, you may be thinking that they don't deserve your forgiveness. Because you're thinking of your PMDD partner as the enemy, you may say, you may know what it is that you can do to let go of the offense. And I can tell you this, but it's something that you already know. You need to forgive. And I know it's easier said than done because a lot of times I know for me, I wasn't getting the kind of apologies that were, genuine. It was almost like a check the block. It was like, oh, I'm sorry you felt that way, or I'm sorry that are offended, or I'm sorry that, that happened to you. Like it was a separate entity, like we weren't connected, like they weren't validating my offense. They weren't validating my feelings. And when your PMDD partner is not validating your feelings, it's making you feel like you're alone in the offense. It's making it seem like they're not really sorry. They're not really apologetic. And so you hold on to it because you're genuinely holding on until your partner gives you a heartfelt apology. And depending on how long it takes for that to happen, you may be, holding on to it for years, for months, for weeks, for days. And during that time, there is a wall, brick by brick, there's a wall that's being built between the two of you. And so I feel like one of the biggest switches that I have learned is to not hold on to offenses, to recognize when I'm offended, what that feels like in my body, what that looks like, what's going on in my head. I have to literally process it and get it out. So this is not some toxic positivity where I'm saying, don't get offended by your PMDD partner or don't get triggered. I'm saying you are going to get triggered. You are going to get offended. But when you're holding on to it, there's so much specifically when you're in PMDD that is genuinely causing you as a PMDD sufferer to suffer even more. I suffered so many times that there was moments where we would go on date night or we would go out to do something that, would be otherwise enjoyable. But because I was offended, it's almost like the record scratch. And I stopped us from having a good time. I stopped us from being able to move on, mainly because I felt like the apology wasn't genuine. And almost, I know for a lot of my private clients, it's almost like because you suffered so much by the thing that they did to offend you, until you feel like your partner has equally suffered, you're not willing to let it go. And I'm going to tell you that that doesn't work. It doesn't work because you're creating this cycle of hurt and pain between you and your PMDD partner. And this is where the ego comes in. The ego will come in and say, why I'm not going to let them win. I'm not going to let them get away with this. Like, think about the things that are going on in your mind. Think about the things that are really going on in your mind when you haven't forgiven your PMDD partner for something that they have done to offend you. There is a lack of empathy towards anything that they're going through, any kind of suffering that they're going through. If they hurt you and you're offended and then they go through something, you're kind of like, oh, well, sucks to be you. Like, kind of like maybe I would be more, willing to support you in this. Maybe I would be more sympathetic towards you had you not just offended me. So you almost change the way you show up to your partner because they offended you, even if they're really going through something. I know for me, it was so hard for me to be there for my PMDD partners after they offended me. It's so hard for me because I'm looking at them like I'm hurt, I'm angry, and there's a selfish nature that comes to this because you're broken in a sense. And I know for me, because getting offended is kind of my Achilles heel. It hurts me so deeply. It was hard for me to come outside of myself to be there for my partner. Specifically when I was in PMDD, it's like, I'm already suffering. You just did something that caused me to suffer even more. And then you just say, oh, my bad. I'm sorry. Like, I felt like I was trying to convince my PMDD partner to give me the kind of apology that I felt like I deserved in order for us to move on. And that was one of the biggest mistakes that I made because I was spending so much time and energy trying to explain to my PMDD partner why I was offended, how they hurt me, why it triggered me, how horrible it made me feel. And it took so much out of me because here's what I want you to know. I want you to let go of feeling the need to explain your offense to your PMDD partner. Here's why. They know what they did. If your partner hurt you, if your partner triggered you, if your partner offended you, and you bring it to their attention one time, they know what they did. They know that it hurt you. You've communicated that. So you spending time talking about it, agonizing over it, going over it over and over with conversations of them and telling them we need to talk, just so you can explain it to them. They know what they did. And if they're not apologizing to you, if in a sincere apology, let it go, because you're not going to get the apology from over explaining it to your partner. I literally thought that this was a thing. I'm like, maybe they just don't understand how bad that they offended me. Maybe they don't understand how much they hurt me. Maybe they don't understand why. I would even go back and say, because of my childhood trauma, it really hurts me when you yell at me or you raise your voice. It's a trigger for me. And I would explain it again and again and again. And it's almost like I got more offended by my partner continuing that same action, even after I told them why. So what this is you get into this realm of PMDD rage because you're tired of explaining yourself to your partner. You're like, they don't get it. And so this is when you can let PMDD rage take you out of character. It's going to make you act a certain way. And then your PMDD partner may potentially use that against you. So you go off on PMDD rage because they've offended you, then you react to that offense. And then now they have something to hold over your head and be like, oh my gosh, I can't believe you're talking about me yelling at you. Look at you, you're yelling at me. So then you find yourself helpless, you find yourself frustrated, you find yourself angry, you find yourself misunderstood. And then you're holding on to it, you're gripping it. And it takes energy to hold on to offense. It really does take a lot of energy to hold on to it. And it causes, a lot of just nastiness within your relationship. Nastiness. Like you will literally say and do things that are so out of character because you're offended. So I want you to remove offense. I want you to let go of offense, not just for your partner, not because it's not good to retaliate towards them after they've offended you, but because it takes you out of character. And guess who feels guilty? Guess who feels guilty after they said and done things because they're offended? You feel guilty. You live with that PMDD guilt. Your partner's fine because they've already offended you and they're like over it. Like how many times have you been in that situation where, your partner, it feels like your partner's over it and you're not? Your partner has offended you. They've said, sorry, my bad, all these things that you feel is disingenuous. And then they're ready to move on. And then it seems like you're the problem. It's like, what's the problem? Like, why are you trying to fight with me? Like, I used to always hear that. Why are you trying to fight with me? And it's like, I'm not trying to fight with you, but I'm just not over the thing that you did to offend me. And I had to come to terms with that. You cannot rush this process. So just because your partner is over it doesn't mean that you're over it. And I'm going to repeat that because for partners, it takes a lot for the other partner to get over something that you have done to offend them. And it's not oh, I say I'm sorry, and then poof, everything's over. Because people have to process what it means. It's a lot of times when your partner is offended, it's for a deeper reason. It's not because of the action that they did. And I always, work with private clients to really understand why um, does this offend you? Why does this offend you? Because something that your partner may do may not offend me. Like it offends you for a reason. And for me, I know a lot of times when I get, when I get offended, it's because it triggers something from my childhood. It makes me go back to that little girl that feels abandoned, that feels neglected, that feels verbally abused, that feels rejected. So a lot of times it's from the deep work. And is that a me thing? Is that a me issue? Absolutely. That doesn't mean that it gives, my PMDD partners permission to just say and do anything, and I should just be have to take it. Because here's the thing, both you and your partner both have triggers. It's not just one of you. So a lot of times, when we have PMDD, your partner can get into this realm of, oh, it's always you. It's always you because you have PMDD. No, no, no. Everybody has trauma. Everybody has life experiences and things that they've gone through. And when you're in an intimate relationship, you need to operate in a way that doesn't trigger those past things. And if you don't know how, that's something that you need to get help with, because when you're combining your life with someone, they have life experiences. I have so many private clients where they don't have PMDD, but they have ADHD, they have OCD, they have PTSD, they have all of these other things from life experiences. And if you're agreeing to be in a relationship with someone, you're agreeing to take on everything that comes with them. And a lot of times there are those triggers, there are those pasts. You will never meet a person that doesn't have a past. Even if it's not in PMDD, you will never meet a person that doesn't have a past. And I want you to really recognize that. And PMDD has a way of bringing up your past traumas. Yes, absolutely. But your partner who doesn't have PMDD has a past as well. And you may do things that trigger them. I've had past partners where they have issues with infidelity. They've been cheated on. And there may be actions that I take when I go internal that trigger them from feeling that feeling of being cheated on. Is it for me to be like, oh, well, I don't care if I do this and you get triggered and feel like I'm cheating on you? No, it's up to me to say, you know what? You feel like when I go internal that it causes you to get triggered where you're feeling like I'm going to cheat on you. So what I have a choice of what to do. I can offend them by continuously doing my actions that cause them to feel insecure and jealous, or I can adjust my actions accordingly. I can be more vocal. I can, say, hey, babe, I'm going to go do this for an hour and check in, as soon as I'm done. I can adjust my behavior to tailor it to the things that offend my PMDD partner. So if you're agreeing to be in a relationship, you're agreeing to tailor your lifestyle to this person's triggers so that they don't get offended. It's not up to them to just deal with your actions. And then hey, because I've heard this before, you're getting offended because you're choosing to get offended. It is not a choice to get offended. It is a choice to hold on to it. You can choose what you do about it. So it's not a choice. If you trigger me or if you trigger your partner and they get offended, they get offended. That's a natural emotion. There's nothing wrong with that. It is what you do with that offense that really impacts your PMDD relationship. So I want you to get to a point where you're not getting offended easily. What I want you to do is to be able to not let it stick to you, right? I want you to think of yourself as Teflon. I want you to allow yourself to get offended and then let it go. Allow yourself to get offended and then let it go. Because if you don't let it go, you're holding on to the offense. And the first way, I'm going to give you some ways that it can really impact your relationship if you hold on to the offense, right? So the first thing is that it can cause you to have more fights within your PMDD relationship. Duh. So getting offended quickly, it's going to lead to frequent, intense arguments with your PMDD partner that they could be a minor disagreement. So here's the difference. If your partner offends you by saying something and you immediately get offended, say if you're driving in a car, because this has happened to me so many times where you might be going on date night or you might be doing something really, really fun. And then they say something to you like, I don't even, you may be going somewhere. I'm going to give you a perfect example. You may be going somewhere where you really took the time to really put a lot of effort into something, because this is normally how it happens. You have pure intentions. You put a lot of effort into doing something, and then the person complains about it. Your partner complains about it. So you get really offended. So you could be going somewhere and doing something, and then your partner complains about the activity that you chose. I don't even know why we're doing this. I don't even like, maybe it's a movie, right? And you may be like, oh, I'm going to take them to see this movie that, they really mentioned that they wanted to see. So you get in the car and you're going towards the movies and they say, I don't even know why we're going to the movies today. I would rather stay home. So you're immediately offended. You're like, what do you mean? Like, I specifically chose to go to the movies because you told me before that you wanted to go to see this movie. But maybe you didn't check in with your PMDD partners to see if they wanted to go to the movie that day. But because you're in PMDD and they said something that offended you, this is the next way it's going to impact your relationship. You can immediately withdraw. How many times have you been in a relationship in your PMDD relationship and you're driving in a car and your partner says something and you immediately shut down and start looking out the window, or you immediately shut down and put your headphones on, or you immediately shut down and turn the music up? The emotional withdrawal happens after the partner is offended because they feel like somebody just ripped the blanket off of them. They feel like the record scratch. So it leads to a lack of intimacy and connection. So if you were in the car and you were talking and laughing and having a good time, you're immediately disconnecting yourself because you feel like they've offended you. So you're kind of going on this emotional roller coaster, and your partner may start to ask, what's wrong? What's wrong with you? And what do you say? Nothing. This is the next way that it impacts your PMDD relationship. When you're offended, there's a communication barrier. You're shutting down on communicating with your PMDD partner because you're offended. So you don't want to discuss your feelings. You don't want to discuss your needs. You don't want to discuss your PMDD symptoms and how they've just triggered you into PMDD rage. You don't want to discuss any of that because you're offended, because you're looking at your PMDD partner like they're the enemy. So there is a big communication barrier immediately once you get offended. And the next way that it impacts your PMDD relationship is there's increased tension. You have a lot of tension as soon as you feel misunderstood in your PMDD relationship and you've gotten offended. You may feel like, I asked them, did they want to go to the movies? I know that they wanted to go to the movies. And because we're going on this day, now all of a sudden it looks like I wasn't being considerate of my PMDD partner. Now it looks like I'm the bad guy. Now it looks like the situation that I chose to do that was a positive thing, all of a sudden now it's being taken as, you're being inconsiderate of their needs. And now you don't even want to go to the movies. And you're feeling like your actions of taking them to the movies is misunderstood. How many times have you had well-intentioned actions that you've taken for your partner? You cooked a meal and then they complain about the meal. I don't like spicy food. Or you cook something and they say, oh, I think I'm allergic to this, or, oh, this isn't cooked a certain way, or you cook the meal and they say something like, oh my gosh, now, we're going to have to clean up the dishes. Like, you may be cooking a meal for them. And instead of them commenting on, wow, I'm really grateful or really thankful that you made this meal for us, babe, they may be looking at the kitchen and saying, look at this mess that you made. Look at this mess you made while you made the dinner. So you feel offended, and there's all of these misunderstandings because you're hurt and you're confused as to how your actions that you did, which were well-intentioned, you did them to make your PMDD partner happy, how they could possibly complain about them. So this is when you have resentment that becomes built up because you're feeling like, you know what, if you're going to complain about every little thing that I do, I'm just not going to do anything. So now you're so offended that you're feeling resentful. Right. So now over time, this really damages the relationship because now you've stopped doing a lot of the actions that you previously did with your PMDD partner because you're like, oh, what's the point of doing it? They're just going to complain about it. So you have this resentment, and then they may ask you like, hey, babe, do you want to go on date night? Do you want to go to the movie? No, you don't want to go to the movies anymore because the last time you went to the movies, they complained about it. Or you don't want to, cook dinner for them anymore because the last time you did it, they complained about it. So now you're so offended that you're stopping doing the things that once connected you and your PMDD partner. So what happens when you are constantly feeling offended? This leads to this emotional instability with your partner. So when you are constantly offended by every little thing that your partner does, and I know how this feels, there's no emotional stability. You're up, you're down, you're close, you're not close. You're pulling away. It's kind of like you have that push and pull of the luteal phase in PMDD and the follicular phase more frequently because you're offended. So there could be times where you're in your follicular phase and you're pulling away from your PMDD partner because they've offended you. And then your partner may be confused and like, wait a minute. you're not in PMDD. Like you're supposed to be, feeling good, and we're supposed to be being connected. How many times has your PMDD partner said to you, like, hey, I don't even think that we're supposed to be having issues because you're in your good days. So they'll start to question, are you in PMDD? Like, are you really in PMDD? Because I thought you were in your follicular, phase. And it's like, you can cause yourself to go into what I would call similar mannerisms that you would have in PMDD in your follicular phase because you're offended. And so how many times have you said, like, everything's not PMDD. Like, I can get offended even when I'm not in PMDD. And that's what I need you to really understand. The reason why is because you're holding on to that offense. We need to get to that point where we're actually addressing the issues that you're having, because the next way that, PMDD offense, like getting offended while you're in PMDD, can impact your relationship is you might avoid talking about issues that you have with your PMDD partner, talking about the triggers, talking about the way that they offended you. I know so many times in my past PMDD relationships, they would always assume that if I was talking about an issue, I'm trying to fight. I'm trying to get in conflict. They would be like, why are you trying to fight with me? And it's like, I'm not trying to fight with you, but I'm just trying to address the issues that we're having. I'm trying to address them so that we can get through them. But if your partner is offended, the one that doesn't have PMDD, they may not want to talk about the issues that you have. They may not be in that place of being open to even having sessions with me. They may be so offended and think that, I've had a lot of private clients say to me, I thought when I went on a private session with you that you were going to be taking the other person's side. So there's this avoidance of talking about the issues because they're like, you have PMDD, Dr. Rose, so of course you're going to take their side. And then they get on the session and they realize it's the complete opposite. That I hold space for you who has PMDD and you who doesn't have PMDD. It's not about one person against the other. It's about you all getting together and really addressing the issues that are causing you to suffer in your PMDD relationship. Because the next way that this can really impact your PMDD relationship is your partner who constantly feels offended, they may be less likely to feel the support from you. Like, have you ever tried to offer to do something for your partner, but they're so offended, they're like, I got it, I'll do it for myself. They don't want to depend on you because they're going to feel like they owe you, because they feel like you're the enemy at this point. They genuinely feel like you're the enemy when they are offended. And so this is why we really need to let go and learn to let go of it quicker, because it really has an impact on the compassion level, right? Remember, I talked about this earlier. When you're offended by your PMDD partner, it's hard for you to support them. It's really, really hard for you to support them in anything that they're going through because you're offended. So the biggest thing that I want you to take away from all of this is I want you to take the emotion out of the offense. So I want you to really ask yourself, this is how you get rid of the offense. Because I know you may be thinking like, okay, Dr. Rose, these are the way that, PMDD offense or getting offended in PMDD affects my relationship. How do I stop myself from getting offended? And this has been proven to really, really work when you're in PMDD. And I've used this for myself and I've used this for a lot of my private clients. I want you to ask yourself this question, and this is going to stop you from getting offended. Did my PMDD partner do something to maliciously offend me? Did they do it on purpose? Because a lot of times your partner can offend you by doing things not on purpose. They're just, they may have mindlessly done something or mindlessly said something or said, I didn't mean it like that. I want you to really ask yourself that question. Did my PMDD partner do this on purpose? Did they hurt me on purpose? If the answer is no, let go. If the answer is no, let go. This is the mantra that I use for getting offended. And then if you ask yourself this question, did my PMDD partner apologize? Did my PMDD partner apologize? Did they do it genuinely? If they apologized, let it go, because there's nothing else that they can do, honestly. They can't go back in time. And a lot of you are holding on to bitterness and resentment and getting offended by your PMDD partner as a way of punishing them. You're waiting it out. You're giving them the silent treatment. You're withdrawing from them. You're stonewalling them, which is shutting down on them because you're offended and you want to cause them to suffer as much as you're suffering. You really, really want that, because a part of you, that's the PMDD evil side of you. It feels good. because you're like, yeah, now they're suffering as bad as I'm suffering. I want you to let that go, because as much as you think that you're punishing your PMDD partner, you're punishing yourself too, because it takes a lot to hold on to that offense. And PMDD is going to continuously use it. When you have that offense going on in your PMDD brain, you're continuously going to have intrusive thoughts. You're continuously going to have anxiety. You're continuously going to have depression. All of these things are things that you're inflicting on yourself by holding on to the offense that you have towards your PMDD partner. You are suffering while you're trying to cause your PMDD partner to suffer because you originally suffered from getting offended. So I want you to follow that pattern. I want you to understand what you're doing, because when you know better, you do better. So if you know that by holding on to the offense that you have towards your PMDD partner is actually causing yourself to suffer, then you can ask yourself that question. Do I want to continue to suffer? Do I want to continue to suffer? Remember, if the answer is no, let it go. So I want you to really take this time, think about anything that you have inside of you that you are offended by, that you have been offended by. When I do this exercise with my private clients, you have to dig it up, because a lot of times if you've never let it go, it's still inside of you. How many times have you been in a conversation with your PMDD partner, an argument, and then you start bringing up old stuff because you haven't let go of that offense? And if that's something that you need help with, I want you to go to my website, inlovewithpmdd.com, contact me so we can really work through getting rid of the offense so that you can stop causing yourself and your partner to suffer more when you're in PMDD and in your relationship. We got this. I hope this PMDD episode helped you and your partner in your struggles within your relationship. And if this is something that you know that you need help with and you need further support, individualized support, make sure you're going to inlovewithpmdd.com and you're getting those private sessions to really work through what you're going through in your relationship, specifically in regards to PMDD. And also, I want you to leave a 5-star written review on Apple Podcasts. What this does is it helps other PMDD sufferers and partners find this show that can help them get these free PMDD relationship tools. I remember what it felt like to not know that there were tools out there specifically for PMDD relationships. So I want to make sure that you are sharing these tools with others, share them on your social media, share them with people that you know that are also struggling in their PMDD relationships. Until next episode, this is Dr. Rose, your PMDD relationship psychotraumatologist. One more thing, I almost forgot. I now have the Fresh Start PMDD Partners Workbook. What this workbook can do is, if you've had past traumatic experiences with your partner, past fights, past arguments, and they keep coming up every single month in PMDD, I created a Fresh Start Workbook so that you can deal with all of the traumatic experiences that have happened in the past in PMDD range and all of these things, so you can stop going through the same cycle again and again and again. So get that workbook. It comes with a video episode of the actual podcast that I recorded on getting a fresh start in your PMDD relationship, so you're not continuing the same cycle again and again and again. So make sure that you get that workbook. And if you need those individualized counseling sessions, you know where to go, inlovewithpmdd.com. Until next time, we got this. Love you.